Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill again, your legacy builder at Winning Proof. And I am here today with another Winning Proof Unscripted. And today I have JaYson Wells with me, and I am going to read his bio so I get it right. Okay. So, as founder of Athletes on Purpose, an organization that guides athletes, parents, and coaches on their journeys of self awareness and purpose, JaYson Wells brings his experience with elite teams and insights to help business leaders build winning teams by doing simple things better. JaYson has spent the majority of his adult life traveling the world as a professional basketball player and has played with, against, and collaborated with some of the most well-known professional sports leaders. Through his life journey and 13 years of professional basketball, he has gained a critical understanding of how high-performing teams function, both physically and mentally. As the author of The Things We Know But Do Not Do, got to get the name there, JaYson focuses on developing leaders to become purpose-driven individuals. Intentional leaders are armed with the tools to connect with the people they lead, which create the team dynamics needed to drive maximum performance. JaYson is a passionate seeker of growth, a mirror of authenticity, and hates to have his name misspelled because it's all about the Y. And you see in his name, it's capital Y. And I have gotten that, haven't I?
You have gotten that as recent as this morning.
That's right. So welcome, JaYson. Nice to have you.
I appreciate it, Michelle. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. All of that good stuff. Yeah, let's do it. I'll give you your kudos after. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad you're here. And I just want to dive in. Tell viewers a little bit about the strong foundation you received from your parents, both of them, like
sure.
Your mom and your dad.
Sure. And it's funny how that happens, Michelle. So my mom and dad split up when I was 5, and I went with him. So, late 70s, early 80s, even now, most times if families don't work out, if marriages don't work out, if there's kids involved, the kids will go with mom. But even then, mom was the breadwinner and dad was kind of, excuse me, Mr. Mom. And so going with him, he taught me what I refer to as a true, authentic definition of manhood. I feel like a lot of men are growing up in situations where they've been introduced to a toxic definition of manhood. So we live up to stereotypes, social acceptances, and we all know what those look and sound like. And my dad, from a very early age, he taught me that I could communicate. He taught me that I could be domestic. He taught me that I could love and do all of those things and not lose my masculinity or not have my masculinity challenged. And of course, that still goes through a metamorphosis of growth and experience and maturity and all of those things. But I've always been rooted in those things. And now fast forward, and mom's the same. Mom is awesome, principle driven. I share a quick story with her. When I first moved to St. Louis, Susan Hearn, who is a lady that I actually currently work with now, she's did my current website, but she wanted to do a story on what it was like raising a professional athlete. And I ran that past my mom, and my mom was like, we were never raising a professional athlete. We were just raising a great person. And you just happened to go down the route of becoming an athlete and becoming a high level athlete. But we were just raising a great person. And so, fast forward to now, I'm someone who's rooted in principles, rooted in values, rooted in beliefs, and really more than anything, the simplicity that goes along with those things. Like honesty is honesty across the board. Integrity is integrity, respect, discipline, commitment. Those things are across the board. And so it started at home, and now it's transferred to who I am as a soon to be 44-year-old man. I don't even know if I like the way that sounded.
Well, it's looking good on you.
I appreciate it.
Can't tell. And I have to tell, everybody, JaYson, what he just said, he exemplified that as and I hesitate to call my clients because it sounds so business and so clinical, but you become friends with who you work with a lot of times, and you exemplified all those characteristics that you just described. So
I appreciate
your
that.
mom and dad did a good job, and you continue to exemplify that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so your journey in life and sports has not been without struggles. So talk about some of the struggles you've encountered and how you overcame them.
Shoot, where you want me to start? I can. Here, I'll sum it up with this, Michelle. I'll sum it up by, and this will transition into anything that we can talk about, in the remaining time. I tell people often that I fell in love with basketball because my dad was a musician. And as like brain wrecking as that may be, I mean that literally. So my dad was a jazz musician who loved sports and loved athletics, but never pursued it at any level, let alone a high level. And so when I started to go that route, he did what I think a parent should do, which is, hey, I can't necessarily teach you these things, but I will support the heck out you. And also my dad, because he was a musician, he didn't live vicariously through me, which is another something that I see often in today's not just athletic world, but across the board. And so I never got any of that. So I got to fall in love with the game organically. And so when adversities hit, it was from doing something that I loved. It was from doing something that I was passionate about, and it just organically happened. And so, I can say, when I was cut from a team at such and such an age, what that did was help me build the resilience for things that I faced in my adult life. I often make reference to a story where there were three of my guys. There was many of us, but three of us were like really the guys in high school. And I remember our sophomore year, my three best friends got called up to varsity and I got left on JV. And that's traumatizing to a 15-year-old. And in that moment, I remember it like it was yesterday, tears running down my face as we make the tunnel, I'm watching my three best friends run out on a Friday night to play varsity basketball. And then I fast forward to going through what I refer to as the year of hell, 13 months of hell, of January 2011 to February 2012, where in that time I retired the game that I had played my entire life, came home, got separated and consequently divorced, bankruptcy, foreclosed on my house, and got laid off. And it's like, well, how were you able to bounce back with all of those different things? Well, because I learned as a 15-year-old that life is going to punch you in the face, and it's not a matter of getting up. We all know that we're supposed to get up, but now knowing myself well enough to know how do I get up? And that's the importance. Like, what's driving me enough to be able to say, all right, I just got punched in the mouth. How do I get up from this? And that's what I learned through sports. And as more recent than I would like to admit, I've had some adversities that have been extremely challenging that most people may fold. And I just keep digging into my toolbox of things that I learned through sport.
I love that. And people see what they want to see, sure. And they see your step 52, and they don't see all those steps of having your head buried in tears at your desk. I mean, I've been there. And the adversity you've been through, they don't see, and you have to share it so people can see, because sure. They can relate to it. But people don't see that struggle behind the success.
Absolutely. They people tell me all the time, well, you quit your job, and I wish I had that much courage, and I wish I could do what you do. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you really don't, because if you wanted to, you would, because I'm just the guy that was driven enough by purpose to act on it. And most people, it may be in there. There may be this curiosity. It's just they haven't been pushed to a point where they're ready to act on it. So, but with that, with step 52 comes a lot of trips, a lot of falls, and 1, 2, and 3 for sure.
Yes. Phew. Some sweat on the brow.
And they may even come again at 55. Who knows?
Yeah, without a doubt. And for me, I don't know, you can speak to this, but I wouldn't trade that adversity for anything. And it's tough, and it's soul wrenching, and there's so many things involved in it, but I would not trade it because it makes you who you are. It
Absolutely
grows teeth. It grows, so much great mental muscles.
Yeah. People getting to the point where, again, not knowing that I need to get up. Here we go. Things we know but do not do. We know we're supposed to get up, but what happens when I'm actually down on the canvas, on the ground, and it's time to get up? How do I get up? And that's what I found is really important, just on people with their journeys in general, is knowing yourself well enough to know this is what I need to do in order to make this happen.
Yeah. And when you think about the alternative to getting up, the alternative is staying down.
Sure.
And admitting defeat. Now, sometimes you have to admit defeat if something is going on, and you release that. You admit it. But in the general sense, no, you don't. You don't, and you keep on going. So you realize the alternative to getting back up is staying down. It's being there bloodied and battered and saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. And that's it. And that's where a lot of people end. But you have not. And I have not. So tell people a little bit about what you do with athletes on purpose.
So this is really new. The business part of it is really new. Within the last 6 weeks, I've claimed the business name and got a logo design. So, but this has been in there for quite a while. It's just going through the experiences that I mentioned before, going through the different things of personal maturity and those things to really get it to a point of I feel good about what's being out. And so Athletes on Purpose is literal and figurative at the same time. So I'm a big proponent, pun intended with the why. I'm a big proponent of what's the why behind the what. Why are you doing what you're doing? And I'm not saying that you need to do something different. I'm just saying that I want you to understand why you're doing what you're doing, whether that's with an athlete specifically on the court or the field or the diamond or wherever they are, or it's why am I an athlete? And the big picture behind Athlete on Purpose is I am those same principles that I'm rooted in that we mentioned earlier, and the list goes on and on and on. I am a big proponent of what happens when, in my sport, what happens when that ball stops bouncing? What happens when you no longer are throwing, catching, hitting, spiking, or if your sport doesn't involve a ball, what happens when I'm no longer an athlete? And so 3 major parts to Athletes on Purpose. First part is the athlete. And with that, it's identifying the identity beyond the game I play. Like the quote behind me, if we say it's bigger than the game, then why do we focus so much on the game? And so having those people, specifically young people, understand that who I am outside of these lines is a much bigger part of the impact and influence on the world than whatever I'll do on the court. Look at Kobe. Every great statistic and reward that he got on the court was magnified by the things that he did off the court. And so having athletes understand that, because so much of their identity is wrapped up into what they do, and it's from outside influences a lot that pour into that. So that's the first component. The next component is as a parent. How do I parent on purpose? And parenting through where I'm not living vicariously through my kids, where I understand that I can't monetarily pay for my child to be a professional athlete. I can't pay for them to be a Division I athlete. Like you may think you can, but you cannot. You cannot. And so how do I love, prepare, and challenge my child or children to embrace what they get out of the athletic space, but understand that hopefully my love, preparation, and challenge puts you, combined with you being in an environment that fosters development, now create these transformative skills and values that no matter what industry I go into, integrity is integrity. No matter what industry I go into, communication is communication. Teamwork is teamwork. Leadership is leadership. And now I've parented my way into that versus thinking that I can, make a professional athlete. And then the last part really quickly is the coaches. So there's a term in basketball, help the helper. So if you get beat on defense, I go help you, but somebody has to help me. Otherwise, my man's going to score a layup. And so coaches are in this predicament where they spend so much of their time and energy and resources giving to their athletes, giving to the people in their circle, but who's giving to them? And so my thought is help the helper. If I can be a source that's pouring into the people that are pouring into the people, then now we're in a great place. And so athletes on purpose, in a nutshell, if I play on purpose as an athlete, if I parent on purpose as a parent, and if I coach on purpose as a coach, those three things combined now create an athlete on purpose. So I hope that as clear as it felt. It felt good.
Yeah. Well, it sounded good too. So yeah, that's great. And just a question based on something you said about transition in there. I think when you first, started answering the question was, did you go through your own transition when you stopped playing basketball? Because I've heard story after story after story. What was your personal experience, ending the game? I mean, you kept in it because you started coaching, but what was your own personal experience from stopping the game?
Michelle, I consider myself to be one of the smart ones. So 34 years old, when I walk away with gas still in the tank. I walked away from playing at a professional level because at the time I had a wife and a young family, and they weren't traveling with me. And I remember spending my oldest son's second birthday. I'm in the Ukraine and they're in Atlanta. And I told myself, we're not doing that anymore. And so I walked away still having something to give to the game, physically, mentally, maturity wise. It's been 9 years and I'm really just starting to anchor into what post basketball looks like. And I knew I didn't want to be a bench coach. So I got into skill development and I had some great years working with Nike and forming these friendships with other brands and people. And then it shifted to off the court to, let me do this. And now it's really just in this space where the three things that I just talked about, that is where the anchor is. I remember my second NBA experience was with the Miami Heat. And this is when Pat Riley was coaching. And he told us something for the week that I was there during tryouts. He said, hey, what happens most in the game of basketball, fellas? And we're like, dribbling, shooting. We're saying typical basketball player answers. He's like, transition. That word happens most because, I think this is applicable in most sports, if not every sport. You're transitioning from having the ball to not having the ball. You're transitioning from weak side defense to strong side defense, from being on defense to being on offense. Whatever it is, it's always a transition. So if that happens the most, that's the thing we're going to practice the most. And for those 7 days, Michelle, when I tell you we practice transition, we practice like it was a reason that those 1980s, mid 80s Lakers were called Showtime, because those jokers were in shape. Like that's the principle of Coach Riley. Like, we're going to run, we're going to play this style, but we're also going to be able to play this style. And I think about that in life. Transition is something that happens very often. I don't know if as intentional as Coach Riley was with practicing transition, I don't know if we're that intentional with practicing transition outside of athletics. And that's something that I really want to focus on. Like, successful reps lead to confidence. The more times that I've done it successfully, my confidence is going to grow. And when I do things confidently, it becomes a habit. And then hopefully it will even go from beyond a habit to instinct. So now the transitions that happen in life, because I've practiced them, now they're habitual. Now they're instinctual. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the transition itself.
Sure.
Because there's so many ways to get stuck. So, but yeah, we're transitioning from the moment we're conceived.
Absolutely.
To various stages. And, I'm working on a speech about transition. So
well, you use any of that, however that can be serviced. Go ahead.
No, it's so true. We're in a constant state of transition. So, and I've heard so many stories about athletes who, most struggle, if not all, struggle with that transition from who am I? I'm not playing anymore. Who am I as a person? So many stories of sitting in a heap of tears, wondering who am I? What am I going to do? Will anybody like me? Not being an athlete. So that's really crucial. Do you touch on that with athletes on purpose?
Absolutely. That is the main part of the athletic part, the athlete, the playing with purpose. Everything the way that I'm designing this is everything is broken down into 3 major anchors. And so I mentioned it for parents: love, prepare, challenge. For athletes, it's health, wealth, and relationships. Like true health, mental and physical. Like understanding, hey, for however long I was an athlete, I knew why I was working out. Now all of a sudden I don't have that I don't have that drive anymore. That's why a lot of athletes will go from playing shape to not playing shape. And some of it may be on purpose. I remember Kobe, when he retired, he's like, I ate everything I thought I might have wanted on purpose because I had to be so disciplined for so long. And then, okay, all right, that was cool. Let me get back to it. But, what's your motivation to work out when you no longer have a result for it? Obviously, mental health is a huge topic nowadays. And I'm playing around with, mental health. I still think that's a little bit of a taboo word. And so, just playing around with mindset and having them understand the positives of an abundance mindset, the positives of believing that you deserve what you desire and things like that. And then wealth. I was that kid that, as awesome as my dad was, he taught me what he taught me, and he couldn't teach me what he didn't know. And one of the things he didn't know was finances. And so I had to learn finances by trial and error, and so helping athletes understand not deep, stock market type stuff, but understanding credit, debt, assets, liabilities, like you got to know these things. And then the last part is relationships, broken down into 3 major areas. My friends and my family. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not JaYson the Hooper anymore. Like, how do they look at me? Business networks and connections. Like, now, how do I navigate into this space of making these relationships work from a business standpoint? And then the last one is romantic relationships. Your little girlfriend might not like you as much anymore when you're not running up and down that court, and how to navigate through that. So it's really intentional. I'm having fun designing it. We're about 95% done. We got some things launching in the next couple weeks, and yeah, I'm excited.
I am too. I am too. Yeah. Definitely. So, okay. So your book, this was, and I have to hold it up again. Let me get the direction here.
There it is.
So this was, so fun to put your words together. And they were your words. But so what is the book about? If somebody has not read it, tell them a little bit what it's about and what readers can take away once they finish that last page.
Sure. Well, it's funny, and you know this because you are the person that made that possible for you to be able to hold a tangible book. But I didn't sit down to write a book. I verbally threw up on my keyboard and started writing some blog posts, and you and your phenomenal team were able to put those things in together and make them be a book. But it's reading the book now and knowing what's in the book. It is exactly what I just said for Athletes on Purpose. It is a tool for parents, for coaches, for athletes to be able to look at and say, or read and pull some things out that maybe get some insights on some things that you didn't know, and be able to use those things. Like my biggest takeaway, and I don't know whether I'm gonna work on a workbook for this or not, but my biggest takeaway from that would be, let's bring to light the things that we know, and now let's take it a step further. Let's start to do the things that we know. Like everybody knows how to lose 20 pounds. Mm-hmm. Like you just need to do it. So that's what's in the book. Insights. You got some personal stories, some things from playing, some things from coaching, some things from self-development and personal development. So a little bit of everything in there, but really geared towards exactly that same target market of parents, athletes, and coaches, and arming them with some tools that will hopefully help them on their journeys wherever they are.
Definitely. It does that. And one of your chapters is I quit.
Yeah.
and I really like that one. When is it okay for someone to quit?
Yeah. And it's funny. This is the fourth time I had this conversation today, which is just the awesomeness of the universe. I'll keep this real simple. I think the challenge is within the word quit, especially for those of us that are in the athletic space, because we've been raised on winners never quit and quitters never win. And it's specifically that word. So my word challenge is step away. When is it okay to step away from something? And for me, I think there's a major difference in stepping away from something because it's easy, or stepping away from something because it's challenging or something like that. That's one thing, which I would refer to as quitting. And then they're stepping away from something because it no longer serves me. Like that is there's no need to continue to push on if it's not serving me. And some people will listen to that and think that that's selfish, which is another word challenge for me. Like if I'm doing what's best for me, that's not selfish. Self-love is not selfish. But we have such a negative connotation with the word selfish that we shun anything that may look like I'm doing something, but we know the analogy, but again, we don't necessarily put the analogy into action. You get on any airplane, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first, because I don't care who you're traveling with. If you're not around, you can't put their oxygen mask on. So I've taken that and challenged some areas, and quitting is one of them. Selfish is another one of them, to where, hey, I know JaYson well enough to know what JaYson needs for JaYson to be able to be who he needs to be for the world. And if it's taken away from that, then I have no issue stepping away.
Yeah, it's okay. I think people need to get past the quitting, because it's such a taboo. Yeah. And like if a relationship, friendship is not working, if it's toxic, once a healthy relationship can become toxic, it's okay to step away for your own emotional and mental health. There's so many examples of that. So
still, am I stepping away because I just don't want to deal with you no more? Or have I gone through the steps of seeing what it looks like to rebuild, seeing what it looks like to recharge, and ultimately that's not going to happen now. Okay, cool. I feel okay with stepping away. And yeah, it's a fine line, but it's a line that most people, I don't even know if they get close enough to it, because that definition of quitting is in the back of most of our minds.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about in the chapter all about the why.
Yep.
Because that is a big emphasis. And I have to tell people that JaYson told me, I think it was maybe our first conversation, to capitalize the why in his name. As you can see in the background, it's not capitalized in the post, but he told me that because it's all about the why. Every single, I think almost every single email, text I've said, I've capitalized that why. And it reminds me it's all about the why, but that's, that's what you're all about.
Yeah.
So you start in that chapter all about the why by emphasizing the popular phrase, do you.
Yeah.
But the spin on it, you put that spin that says, do you, DEW.
Yeah.
So talk about how and why the phrase DEW came about and how it has unfolded.
Sure. Well, that goes back to my dad. That's my dad's initials, DEW. So my dad passed away in 2003, right in the middle of my professional career. And it was right around the time where rubber bands were becoming popular. Lance Armstrong had the Live Strong bands, and I literally got it made. I used to call him Do Man, just in playfulness. And so when he passed away, it was just my little tribute to him. It was nothing. I wasn't thinking further down the line. I was literally thinking in the moment. And and so it people would like ask me for them, and I would hesitantly give them to them. Like, it's kind of my thing, isn't it? I don't know. And not until I retired did I come up with, and actually you don't know this yet, but I came up with an acronym that could be applicable for everybody, which started off Develop Extraordinary Winners. And what you don't know is in the last few weeks, I've actually tweaked that a little bit. So still DEW, but instead of Develop Extraordinary Winners, it's now Develop and Empower Winners. So still DEW, but I wanted to put more action to it. So develop as an action, empower as an action, winners as the noun. And so that's what it stands for. And it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Yeah. So develop and empower winners. It keeps me rooted to him, but it also connects me and keeps me rooted to my purpose. And what better people to be connected to than my dad, who I look up to, and my purpose that I'm anchored to. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And that's a sharp band. You see lots of bands around, but that's a really nice one.
So, do you have one? If you don't, we got to get you one. Okay.
I don't.
My bad. I'll claim that. My bad. We'll get you one.
You heard it, everybody. So, in another chapter in your book, you talk very candidly to parents of youth athletes. I mean, you don't mince words. So what is your message to them, and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I've touched on, like, we hear so much about the Tiger Woods of the world, the Serena Williams of the world, of Venus, and like these childhood prodigies, like Tiger being on the Johnny Carson show at 2 years old, knocking in like his dad raised him to be a golfer. Venus and Serena's dad raised them to be tennis players. And so we hear about that so much. And now I think the reason we hear about that so much is because those stories don't play out very often. Like they are the anomaly. Mm-hmm. But now I feel like we're living in a generation where parents think that that's what they can do. I can pay my child's way to a Division I scholarship or being a professional athlete. And ultimately what I found, Michelle, is at the end of the day, if you need to force your child to do something, then your child, it's the same as anything else. If I'm not passionate about it, then at some point I'm going to not do it. I don't even like doing it. Why would I continue to do it? So whether that's at 13 or 33 or whatever. And so my plea to parents is really simple. Let's talk about how you can authentically love your child. Let's talk about how you can authentically prepare your child. And then let's talk about how you can authentically challenge your child. And those three things are principles that, whether they're doing those things through sport or whether they're doing them through tech or whether they're doing them through philanthropy, they are now rooted in being a quality person, like my mom said, and we can bounce around some different things. I think, morals and ethics, most people have a pretty foundational base of what those are. And I do this one thing. I'll keep this quick. I know we're getting close.
Okay.
I do this activity with parents as soon as they walk into one of the workshops. And okay, hey, let's hypothetically say your child's career is over. Doesn't matter why it ended. Could have been injury, could have been it's just over, could have been retirement, could have been pandemic, whatever it is, your child's career is over. Name me the things that you would want your child to have gotten from their athletic experience when they're all done. And raise their hands. I would want them to know how to overcome adversity. Okay, perfect. I would want them to get leadership. I would want them to get teamwork. I would want them to get respect. I would want them to get understanding punctuality. And they start naming all of these different things. Never, Michelle, have I had a parent say, when my child's athletic career is over, I would have wanted them to be a national champion and be the best basketball player or the fastest swimmer. Nobody ever says that. And so if it's bigger than the game, why do we focus so much on the game? If these are the things that you want your child to get out of their athletic experience, let them get that. And not saying that winning doesn't add to that, because I'm the ultimate competitor, but winning at a sacrifice to enjoyment. My kids, 13 and 10 years old, no matter what activity they're doing, athletic, non-athletic, anything extracurricular, did you have fun? Did you learn something? Because at 13 and 10, that's all that matters. Nobody cares if you win the national AAU championship at 13 years old. Besides the 3 minutes of holding up the trophy, taking the picture, and then by the time you go get something to eat, you forget about it. Like no one cares. So just focusing on the focus. That's what that doing simple things better. That's what that means.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, there's so much bad behavior by parents at games. And it's from what you said in your book. And I know it's becoming worse and worse and worse. It's not the kids, and the kids are kind of embarrassed because the parents are acting like fools in the stands. Absolutely. So yeah, I love that exercise. So what are you busy with these days? You kind of said, a little bit about what you're launching, but are you busy doing other things, and what are they?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was already moving towards the virtual space, and in the last 5 months said, hey, you got to get in the virtual space. So doing some things, using some platforms. I know you've been using Facebook, so I've been doing some things with Facebook. I'm coming to realize that that's not what I want to do. So I'm building a team of people that, hey, let me bring in somebody that actually enjoys doing that part. So, but launching some digital things, some virtual things, from support group calls for parents that don't know what to do or know that there's something more than what they see, to same thing for athletes. So a lot of this stuff is really pulling the curriculum and the content that's been designed and now just tweaking it a little bit to put it into the virtual space. And so, like I said, we got some things launching here. We're doing, I don't want to say the date because we haven't all the way anchored it in, but really soon this month, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a parenting webinar where we're going to invite. My goal is to have 100 parents on and just talk about what is it like to parent through these uncertain times. Like, what's been your challenge? What's been your challenge? And just create that community. So, a lot of what I've been doing is curating and cultivating what I've been doing in the physical space and now just putting it into the virtual space.
Yeah. And these, Facebook things and podcasts and all these things are.
They make it easy.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's new space for a lot of people. I know it is for me. My website guy has tried to get me to do this camera stuff for a long time.
Sure.
And I have been extremely resistant. And I just thought, okay, just do it. And if you look like a goon, you look dumb, but just like, fine. And then you go, who cares?
Yeah. I was the same. I was the same. I mentioned Susan earlier. For 3 years, she's been telling me, you got to get in front of the camera. You got to get in front of the camera. And I'm like, I don't have an issue getting in front of the camera. I have an issue getting in front of my own camera. If you want to set it up and we can do an interview. And so for me, it was getting out of produced content and just realizing that there was a space for user-generated content, whipping out my phone, holding it up or getting our ring light and doing it that way. So same, I'm getting out of my comfort zone as well.
Yes, it is getting out of our comfort zone, and that's okay. So tell people how they can follow you on social media.
It's really simple, and I'll just go one little word challenge right there. My word challenge is I don't want people to follow me. I want people to lead with me. And so I know follow is the word that most people use, but it's just me being me. But we can be connected. Instagram is Jason.Wells. Twitter is JaysonWells _, which is where I spend most of my time. Jason Wells on Facebook, or Jason Wells Experience is the business page as well. If you spell my name correctly, it shouldn't be that difficult to find me. So just make sure you put the Y in there, and I shouldn't be that difficult.
Okay. And did you say your website?
Yeah, the website is email jason@jasonwells.com, and the website is jasonwells.com. So again, really, really simple. Just if you spell it right, you'll get it.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much for spending your time today and answering a few questions, inspiring people and leading people from the front.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Michelle. And here's my shout out and celebration to you very quickly. I don't have a book if it's not for you. And to sit here knowing that almost 2 years into this, we still haven't physically given each other a hug or anything like that, further plays into technology. But I think more than that plays into just how awesome you are, for you to be able to take my vision, me tell you my vision, and then you put a tangible to that. So I just want to thank you. I am a published author because of you. So I appreciate you and everybody on your Winning Proof team. And I told you when we met that I was giving everybody that came to me about a book, I was sending them to you. So I've done that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's a joy, and we have, we'll keep going forward with, whatever you have. And I just want to thank everybody. Thank you for being on Winning Proof Unscripted, for watching. And you can reach Winning Proof at winningproof.com. That's my website. You can reach me by email, winningproof@gmail.com. And stay tuned for another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.